So why are all these things on the rise? Why is there such a scourge of new diseases that hadn't been seen, at least at these rates?
We will also see the epic global crisis that precedes the rather crazy sounding stuff that we just read. Really, Scott, you're telling me that there's going to be a persecuting power that will prohibit people from buying or selling? And that will even have a death decree that people who would be killed if they do not worship according to the dictates of this political power? Yes, my friends, this is coming. And it's coming sooner than we possibly could imagine. In this opening session of Second Beast Rising, I want to take you through a whole bunch of information, just a data dump on what's happening in our world presently as the global crisis emerges all around us. There is a preparation being made. There is an awakening and an awareness among global elites, common people, billionaires, former generals, current military experts and analysts, economic forecasters, financial experts across the globe. You consult them all and you get one chorus saying the same thing. Something big is happening in our world. And it's not a run-of-the-mill, dramatic, current event issue. It's something unprecedented that is about to burst upon this earth. When, we don't know. We don't set dates. The Bible doesn't point us toward setting dates for any future events. But we can know when the time is near. And we can know that there will actually be a world where this, what we just read here, is possible. Here's what former advisor to the UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown came out and warned about. He said what's coming is, quote, 20 times bigger than the 2008 crisis. And then he went on to tell people stockpile water and other supplies for a month's worth. You might say, well, that sounds alarmist. That sounds like some sort of fear-mongering message. Now remember, the Bible says that some people, when they confront the information of what's happening in the last days, do experience fear, and other people, they lift up their heads, for their redemption draweth nigh. So whether we experience this information in a sense of panic and anxiety and fear, or in a sense of, whoa, this is Bible prophecy being fulfilled, this is crazy, earth-shattering, history-changing events taking place, and it makes me wonder, is my redemption drawing nigh? It makes me certain that Jesus is coming sooner than perhaps I had originally thought, and that makes me anticipate good things. You see the two different responses. Don't allow the information to set you into a state of fear. He's saying here, get ready, stockpiling things. We're going to go into more of this prepper movement. You might view this as kind of the backwoodsmen out there, stockpiling ammunition and digging their bunker and living in a, cave in the mountains or something like that with the sort of, fringe type of movement. But what's amazing here is the elite themselves, the billionaires and governments of the world, as we saw earlier, are actually advocating preparedness. And take a look at what they're actually doing. UK Mirror reported the following. The panicked super rich are buying bolt holes with private airstrips to escape. Robert Johnson, president of the Institute of New Economic Thinking, told people at the World Economic Forum in Davos that many hedge fund managers were already planning their escapes. The New York Times reported about the increase of bulletproof safe rooms and business doubling for those who are hardening up people's Manhattan apartments. The UK Evening Standard reported on, quote, the paranoid world of London's super rich with DNA-laced security mist and super yacht getaway submarines. So these folks are all over the place, gearing up for something. It was also revealed in the UK Telegraph that Facebook's wealthiest top 250 employees have had private discussions about how to buy a bunch of land, then put it in a trust so people don't realize you're amassing a compound. So yeah, basically an underground city here. What are they preparing for? What is being anticipated? They seem to be anticipating and preparing for, quote, we are doomed. Bill Gates himself actually has underground bunkers. under each one of his homes. But beyond the Bible, even a secular person can look at events objectively, fairly, honestly. That's my training. My background is in the social sciences, history, political science, economics. And when I started to look at the news headlines really intensifying and the world events really increasing in their frequency and just pressing in on all these different fronts, from the cultural collapse and the moral degradation, the wars and rumors of wars and the economic issues and instability and the natural disasters and the pestilences and the violence and civil unrest and the terrorism, I mean, you can't help but say, we need help in this world. Things are getting crazy. Everybody seems to be recognizing it, as you've seen here. We're not even done. I want to just throw this in there right now. This is unscripted. I mean, I've got the quotes, I've got the data, I've got the information that I need to share with you. But from my heart, I plead with every human being who has a pulse, who has breath in their lungs, who has neurological functioning at all, and who can understand the words that I'm saying. If we continue to treat today and this week and this month and this year just like any other in the past, it's called procrastinating, and we're going to find ourselves in a situation where spiritual decisions need to be made and need to have been made already. I do want to raise the alarm bell. I think we all need a collective poke in the eye. So he's speaking of economic crisis here. We've heard about food crisis. We've heard about general vague crisis. We've heard about violence, contagions, and civil unrest. How about George Soros? He also warned of economic crisis. He said, I'm not here to cheer you up. By the way, George Soros in 2016 liquidated an enormous amount of his stock holdings. He's one of the top global billionaires, a hedge fund manager of the top rank. And he's famous for having crashed the British pound and manipulated markets and has a whole lot of influence and insight. He's really very much at the top. So what he says really, really, really matters in terms of, is there some credibility here? Take a look at what he says. He says, the situation is about as serious and difficult as I've ever experienced in my career. We are facing an extremely difficult time, comparable in many ways to the 1930s, the Great Depression. We are facing now a general retrenchment in the developed world, which threatens to put us in a decade of more stagnation, or worse. So we've had a decade of stagnation already, send another decade, or worse. The best case scenario is a deflationary environment. So that would be like the Great Depression, the 1930s. He goes on and says, the worst case scenario is a collapse of the financial system. That is a top global financial analyst and investor saying the possible scenario is total collapse of the financial system. And at best, we're going to see like a Great Depression scenario. That's something to sit up and take notice and see what in the world is going on economically. We're going to have a whole session just on the economic stagnation we find ourselves in and the perilous and dangerous economic precipice we stand on the edge of. Are we recognizing the possibility of such massive events upon this world that would shake the fabric of the civilization of this planet to its very core? Or are we just going along la-di-da-di-da thinking, you know what, life is going to go on like it always has, and I don't really need to take spiritual decisions and relationship decisions that seriously because I've got time. That is foolish. And if it takes a ringing of the alarm bell because the house is on fire, then I'm willing to be that messenger of alarm, the watchman on the walls saying, wake up, get ready. Because my friends, it's not alarmist if there's a fire and you pull the alarm switch in a building. That's prudent, appropriate, responsible, the unbelievably important thing to do in the context of a crisis of that magnitude. The Bible invites us to test it, to come, let us reason together. So take a look at the other prophecies in the subsequent sessions that we'll be studying and say, is this book valid? Is this legit? And you'll say, yeah, obviously. I can't believe I ever doubted it. I didn't know any of this. It's amazing, airtight, absolutely documented and validated. So when you hear people say things like apocalyptic, it's because this book, the most read, most sold book, I mean, it's such a just amazing thing that I'm holding this in my hand. I mean, don't you just feel unworthy when you think about those who've fought and died and shed their blood for this, the freedom that we have to read this book? It's just so humbling and just awe-inspiring to think about the prophets who wrote this book over thousands of years, and the hope that this book has brought to so many millions of souls who are hungry for something above and beyond their limited capabilities as a sinful, fallen, mortal human being, as we grasp and seek for the transcendent and the divine that we know exists. The Bible says God has put eternity in the hearts of men. That's why, viewer, when you have those quiet moments and the crickets are chirping and the stars have come out at night, and you look up and you take a deep breath and you start to wonder, there's more going on here than what I see in my average, everyday, run-of-the-mill life with the material world and the busyness of all-consuming thoughts in my mind. When you slow down and you're laying in bed awake at night, or when you just sit beside a bubbling brook and the birds are singing and the leaves of the trees are dancing about as the wind blows, and you take that deep breath, the Bible calls it being still and knowing that He is God. If you've never had that awareness, that awakening to something beyond yourself, seek it in here. Understand it in nature. It's not an it, it's a He. And it's God Himself seeking to connect with each one of His children. And again, if you're coming from a non-religious standpoint and you're going, well, how am I supposed to know? Follow me on this in this series. You will know. You will know the truth, Jesus said, and the truth will set you free.